Imagine, if you will, you're in the middle of a Smash Bros discussion, and someone asks you this question.
Hey, you like Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them bastards, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine right now, out of all the Pokemon there is, you had to choose one to be in Smash Bros that has the most potential in your eyes, to be a character, a fighter, in Smash. Which would it be?
You know what I would say? MUK.
Excuse me.
You heard my words?
Bruh.
What you mean to tell me is, out of every other Pokemon you could have chosen that far deserves to be a character in Smash Bros, you chose MUK?
Yes!
Hello and welcome to the first and presumably one-shot series of videos where I talk about certain characters and what their movesets would be like if they were ever put in Smash Bros. Now I know a lot of YouTubers do this same sort of topic, but this video has a bit of a twist. Unlike most people who go over characters who are highly requested for Smash Bros, today I'm going over a character that literally no one asked for to be in Smash Bros. No one except me. And that character for today is number 89, the Pokedex himself, MUK. This idea mostly stemmed from my opinion that virtually any Pokemon has the potential of being a Smash fighter as long as they're not obviously too big or obviously too small. And if Pokemon like Mewtwo are already in Smash Bros, I'm pretty sure power isn't an issue either. In addition, for those who have been familiar with my YouTube channel, you probably know that I have a thing for grammar and MUK anyways, so you've probably seen this coming if I ever made a video like this. So because I literally have no sense of good taste, let's go over a potential moveset for MUK if he was ever put in Super Smash Bros. I imagine MUK as being an above average heavyweight character, one who's just shy away from being a super heavyweight. His amorphous physique coupled with his literal legless nature causes him to be rather on the slow side. Let's say it's similar to Jigglypuff. He would have 2 regular jumps and he would be able to crawl. With all his outward basics out of the way, let's get into hitting crap. MUK's jab sees him swiping his arms overhead twice, similar to his physical attacking animations from Pokemon X and Y and onward. His dash attack sees him leaping out and tumbling on the ground twice before getting back up, almost similar to DDD's dash attack. For MUK's side tilt, he swipes his arm to the side as if he's giving someone a backhand. His up tilt sees him quickly lunging his body upward and clapping the opponent, and his down tilt sees him spewing a jet of sludge from his mouth. Now let's get smashy. For a side smash, MUK raises his body upwards and then slams the ground, obviously calling to reference that iconic scene in the anime where MUK body slams on that Bellsprout. For his up smash, MUK simply charges up his inner bodily gases and lets loose a belch of poisonous gas upwards. And his down smash sees him doing basically the same thing, except letting it loose from his lower end almost like a fart. MUK's neutral air is basically the same as Mewtwo's and Pikachu's neutral airs, except replace the psychic and electric energy with poisonous bubbles. As for his forward air, MUK flails his arms out desperate to hit something. For his back air, MUK swings his arms back while splashing sludge from his hands. Then for his up air, MUK pretty much does a backflip while flinging his arms upward. And finally, for his down air, MUK uses Harden to make his body heavier and plummets to the ground, causing him to fast fall. This of course has a sweet spot that has the potential to spike. With his regular attacks out of the way, let's dive into MUK's grab game. MUK's grab animation sees him lunging out at the opponent, partially submerging them in his slimy body, leading to his pummel, which is basically him slapping the opponent with his arms. MUK performs his forward throw by trapping the opponent in a ball of sludge as he throws it in front of him, the ball of sludge exploding once it lands on the ground. For his up throw, MUK ducks his body downward and puts the opponent on his back, turning his body a lot more acidic, causing a multi-hitting attack before the opponent finally gets launched. As for his back throw, MUK shoves the opponent into his mouth, munching them up 2 or 3 times and spitting them out the other way. And finally, for his down throw, it's rather similar to Bowser's, where he pins the opponent to the ground and simply does a body slam. More so calling to reference to the anime of how MUK always loves to body slam or glomp over his friends or foes. Now it's time for the most fun part of virtually any Smash character moveset, their specials. And of course, because he's a Pokemon, it's based off of certain kinds of moves that MUK can generally learn. Though keep in mind, not all of them are based off of the anime, so excuse me if I had to take some creative liberties with these. MUK's neutral special is Sludge. He pukes out a wave of sludge that travels a reasonable distance while doing consecutive damage to anyone caught in the crossfire, similar to Greninja's Water Shuriken. Though unlike Water Shuriken, this move doesn't really require any sort of charging. Basically, it's similar to Mario and Luigi's Fireballs, except it has a bit more start and end lag to prevent spamming. For MUK's side special, Gunk Shot, MUK gathers a ball of trash and junk in his hand and violently swings it Rasengan style. It's a short-range yet heavy-hitting attack similar to Donkey Kong's Side B, though instead of burying the opponent, if the move successfully lands, it'll drop a random junk item like a banana peel or a piece of Wario's bike. Probably doesn't have to be those things specifically, but you know, whatever random junk item suits your needs. Okay, now strap yourselves in because this next one's a little bit weird, but as you'll learn soon enough, I had a lot of fun thinking of this one. This is MUK's UB special, Sludge Bomb. What exactly makes this attack so weird? Get this. MUK blows a bubble of sludge from his mouth, and it gets so big that he flies into the air.
What?
This attack is literally based off of nothing from the anime and is just some ridiculous crap I pulled out of my head. About as much as ridiculous crap as MUK himself. But I just thought it would be funny to have it as MUK's UP special, even if it doesn't really make any sense. Though as ridiculous as his move sounds in concept, it does have a few properties and uses to it. For starters, it actually deploys rather fast, contrary to what my joke would lead you to believe. The move allows you to gain vertical momentum for about 3 seconds until you're stuck stationary, floating in the air, kinda like Villagers and Isabelle's balloons, but without the flapping to gain vertical momentum. From here, you have a few things that you can do. For one thing, you can just sit there stationary for about 3 seconds before the bubble bursts, causing damage to opponents at a reasonable radius. Another thing that you can do is jump from the bomb to gain a little bit more vertical momentum before going into freefall, simultaneously launching the bomb downwards. Or one other funny thing that you can do is DI yourself into the direction of an opponent who's standing on a platform, taking advantage of the bomb's rather large hitbox. Cause yeah, the bomb itself actually has a decently sized hitbox that can also be affected by other characters' projectile attacks or even solid platforms. With that buttload of words for one attack out of the way, we can finally move on to MUK's down special, Toxic. As you might have guessed, this move is of course a counter. Once MUK gets hit by something, he'll retract his head into his body, bringing the opponent between his arms while spraying flurries of poison at them and then chucking them out. Like Incineroar, it doesn't really do much damage or even launch them very far, but what really makes this move special is its added effect. Where you get poisoned. But not just regular poisoned, you get badly poisoned, where you get inflicted with damage once every second for about 10 seconds. But it's not just one damage though. Every other second you're getting inflicted by damage, it doubles. So it goes from 1 damage, 2, then 4, then 8, and then 16. Adding up to a total of 62 total damage taken after the poison wears off. So if you're facing this guy, pray to God that he's not counter happy. Like with any Smash character, let's finally wrap up MUK's means of hitting crap with his final smash. And in his case, it's his own little version of the Z move, Acid Downpour. Like a lot of cutscene final smashes, it starts with MUK bringing everyone within a certain radius of him to an open field. This of course leads to MUK turning the open field into a swamp of acid and sludge, leading to anyone who gets caught sinking into the ground. If you hadn't guessed, anyone caught within this attack with a high enough percent will more than likely get insta-killed, while anyone with a low enough percent will probably just get launched. Well, that goes over all of MUK's attacking moves, but before I move on to things like alternate costumes and taunts and animations and such like that, I would like to go over one last thing about MUK's moveset. That is of course, his gimmick. MUK's gimmick centers around one of the abilities that he's able to have in the Pokemon games, which is Poison Touch. And translated to Smash Bros, this means that his attacks have a 5 to 10% chance of leaving the opponent poisoned for about 3 or 4 seconds. Well, what's the big deal? It's just like his jab or tilt or something?
Nope.
I'm talking every single attack that MUK has can leave you poisoned. His jab, his dash attack, all his tilt, all his aerials, all his smashes, all his throws, all his specials, except for his down special, and his final smash have a 5 to 10% chance of leaving you poisoned. This guy has so much poison now, make the Giganox proud! While this does seem like a lot of poison, it can work in his misfortune if you play in Spirit mode. For the poison effects that MUK can induce all factor into the poison effect that a lot of spirits can reduce damage from, make you immune to, or even heal from. So if you have one of those spirits while fighting him, he's pretty much screwed. Well, not completely screwed, but you know what I mean. And as an added bonus, I decided to make MUK take reduced damage from the poison himself. I was originally going to make him immune to poison effects, but I think that would probably make him a little bit too broken if that was the case. So now we move on to what's possibly my favorite part of doing this whole thing, the alternate costumes. After the vanilla purple MUK, our first alternate skin is a black MUK. Not only calling to reference of how certain characters have quote-unquote dark or evil skins, it's also in reference to the item in the Pokemon games, the Black Sludge, which MUK is commonly known for having in the wild. The next skin MUK has is green, not only calling to reference the creepiness of green slime, but also is in direct reference to his shiny form. Coming upon the last skin for regular MUK, we have Hot Pink, calling to reference what MUK looks like in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. As you might have guessed, a lot of Smash characters like to reference their previous games with their alternate costumes. Now note that I said before that this is the last skin for regular MUK. This is because, while you may not agree with me on this, but because I think these two are just similar enough to be considered equal in the Smash moveset, I decided to bring Alolan MUK into this as a second half of alternate skins. Not even as an Echo Fighter, but as an alternate costume. Alolan MUK's first skin is a black and green one. Not only as a sort of combination of regular MUK's first two skins and another play on of the dark skin motif, but it's also calling to the reference the idea of glowing radioactive materials. And if you would have guessed Alolan MUK's next skin is based off of his shiny form, well, congratulations, you're a friggin' genius. And the last skin for Alolan MUK is this one, which is a mix between burgundy, red, yellow, and orange, mostly calling to reference the idea of lava and volcanoes and such, complete with the rocks being different colors. And may or may not be in reference to the great mighty Pooh from Conker's Bad Fur Day. Well, we're almost done with this little ordeal, so let's wrap this up by finally talking about MUK's intro, taunts, and victory animations. As with all Pokemon except for Lucario, MUK's intro animation will pretty much be him coming out of a Pokeball. Though I guess to differentiate him from other Pokemon, let's say he's coming out of a Nest Ball or Safari Ball. MUK's up taunt is pretty much him slamming his arm down and growling like his sprite animation from Pokemon Crystal. His side taunt though I had to get a little bit creative with. Basically, MUK grabs out a trash can reaching in to eat some trash, but after he sees it's empty, then tosses it back. This is more so based off of MUK's Pokedex entries saying that he always likes to eat garbage.
I started eating garbage!
Obvious joke out of the way, MUK's down taunt sees him raising his body upward while patting his belly, only for him to let out a burp while chuckling. Yeah, I know it mostly sounds like something Wario would do, but I think MUK can do it too. And at last, we fittingly come to MUK's victory animations. MUK's first victory animation follows up on his side taunt where he's eating trash out of a trash can like a bucket of chicken.
I got a bucket of trash!
MUK's second victory animation sees him emerging from a patch of flowers and grass that are withering away from his stench and MUK letting out a loud roar. And finally, MUK's last victory animation sees him singing along while waving his arms happily with a group of Grimer. Of course, with Alolan MUK, it's Alolan Grimer instead. But wait a minute, aren't we forgetting something very important that no other Smash character can live without? Oh yeah, the Kirby hat. And that finally brings us to the end of what MUK will be like in Smash Bros. Something that literally no one asked for, but I decided to do anyways because I thought it'd be fun. Now like I said before, there's no guarantee that I'll do another one of these, but I'll tell you what. If this video gets about as popular as my TF2 dubs, then I'll make a follow-up to this video. With which character exactly? The Piantas!
I come out,
Those can kill like 50%!